Ilara leaned back in her chair and looked around the ship's common area. The lights were soft, casting a gentle glow over the metal walls and the rows of chairs bolted to the floor. Outside the large windows, the endless blackness of space stretched in every direction, dotted with distant stars. It was beautiful, silent, and peaceful, a silence that humans could never experience on Earth. She smiled to herself. Life aboard the Aegis Explorer was quiet now, but it was never truly dull. There were always experiments to monitor, star charts to study, and small crises to manage. Yet amidst the long hours, the crew found moments to laugh and forget the weight of the galaxy pressing against their tiny vessel. Tonight she wanted one of those moments. Across the room, Orion sat alone, arms folded, watching the monitors without a hint of expression on his face. He was the pilot, the calmest member of the crew, and perhaps the most mysterious. Nobody knew much about him. His background files were sparse, and his demeanor was precise and distant. He rarely smiled, rarely laughed, and never shared anything personal. That didn't stop the crew from respecting him. If anything, it made him even more remarkable. Ilara's eyes followed him as he adjusted the navigation panel. She shook her head, a playful idea forming in her mind. It was dangerous to joke about Orion, she knew, but the crew needed laughter tonight.
And maybe, just maybe, she could draw a smile from him. She rose from her chair and moved closer.
"Orion," she said loudly enough for the few nearby crew members to hear, "I have an important question for you." He glanced at her briefly but didn't stop what he was doing. Ilara grinned. "Don't worry, it's a serious one. I need the truth. Are you an alien? Or maybe a time traveler, or a secret experiment sent by Earth scientists to see if we survive in space?" The room erupted with quiet chuckles. Some crew members shook their heads, amused by Ilara's wild imagination. Others nudged each other, waiting to see how Orion would respond. Orion didn't laugh. He didn't even blink in surprise. He set his tools down slowly and looked at her with a steady gaze. His dark eyes, calm and deep, seemed to pierce through her joke. "You wouldn't believe me even if I told you," he said. The words were simple, but they carried weight. The room fell silent. Even the soft hum of the ship seemed to pause for a moment. Ilara blinked. The joke had vanished in an instant. She felt her cheeks heat slightly, not from embarrassment, but from a strange curiosity. Who was this man who never smiled, never joked, yet somehow carried an air of truth that made even a playful question feel serious? I didn't expect that," she said, trying to recover her light tone. Orion said nothing. He simply returned to his work, as if the conversation had never happened. But the air between them had changed. The crew noticed it too, though nobody spoke. They all understood somehow that a door had opened, a door that perhaps should never have been opened so casually. After a few moments, Ilara sat back down, but her mind refused to stop racing. She stared out of the window at the stars. What if Orion was serious? What if he was not entirely human? The thought seemed impossible, yet something in his tone, in the way he carried himself, whispered that there was truth hidden beneath the calm surface. The ship vibrated gently as it adjusted its trajectory through the dark stretches of space. Ilara's communicator buzzed softly, signaling a new message from the research lab. She ignored it, too absorbed in her thoughts. She wanted answers, though she didn't know if she was ready for them. Days passed, but the question she had asked lingered in her mind. Orion continued his duties without any change. He trained the crew, monitored the ship's engines, and navigated the vessel with perfect precision. Yet when their eyes met across the room, she noticed the subtle differences. He seemed more aware, more than just human awareness. It was as if he saw layers of reality that others could not. One evening, the crew gathered for a routine exercise outside the ship's atmosphere. Ilara followed Orion to the command deck. The exercise was simple: navigate through a field of debris from a destroyed asteroid. But the crew had trouble anticipating every fragment. Orion moved effortlessly, giving commands with calm authority, his mind clearly calculating paths that none of the others could see. Ilara watched him, her earlier question returning with intensity. She waited until the exercise ended, until the crew clapped and laughed at their small victories. Then she approached him quietly, her heart pounding slightly. "Orion," she said softly, "can I ask you something? Seriously this time?" He looked at her, expression calm as if he had been expecting this question all along. "Go ahead," he said. Alara hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "The other night, my joke about you being not human. Was it really just a joke to you?" Orion's eyes met hers directly. There was no amusement there, no attempt to soften the words. "No," he said. "It was not a joke." Her pulse quickened. The crew's usual banter and laughter seemed distant now, replaced by a weight she had never felt before. "I don't understand," she admitted. "You wouldn't," he replied calmly. "Not yet, but one day you may." Alara searched his face, trying to find a hint of playfulness or exaggeration. There was none. Only truth. From that moment on, a strange tension settled between them. Alara found herself watching him more closely. She noticed small things. The way his eyes seemed to track objects before they moved. The way he spoke multiple languages in passing without anyone noticing. The way his hands moved across controls with precision far beyond training manuals. It was unnerving and fascinating. One night, while the crew slept, Alara remained in the common area, gazing at the stars. Orion joined her silently, standing beside her without a word. "You know," she said, breaking the silence, "I don't know if I want the truth or not. Some things are easier to believe as jokes." Orion did not answer immediately. He simply looked out into the darkness, the endless stars reflecting in his eyes. After a moment, he spoke. "Truth has a way of finding those who are ready, even if they do not realize it." Alara shivered slightly. She realized she was ready, and she realized, too, that the universe aboard the Aegis Explorer was far larger and far more mysterious than anyone aboard could imagine. The ship continued its journey through the stars, carrying humans into the unknown. And as Alara watched Orion, standing there as calm and enigmatic as the night sky itself, she wondered what secrets lay hidden in the mind of the pilot who had answered her joke with such quiet certainty. She had asked a question without expecting an answer, and yet the answer had come. It was a beginning. The days following Alara's question were different. She couldn't shake the memory of Orion's calm answer, nor the quiet weight in his eyes. Every move he made seemed deliberate, almost as if he were steps ahead of everyone else on the ship. She watched him, sometimes from across the control room, sometimes during mealtime in the common area, trying to understand. It wasn't just his precision, it was the way he understood situations that no one else could. During a routine engine check, Orion noticed a slight vibration in the ship's core. It was too subtle for the sensors, too minor for the engineers to feel. Yet, without hesitation, he adjusted the flow of energy, preventing what could have been a serious malfunction. "Did you just sense that?" one of the engineers whispered to Alara later. "I think he did," she said quietly, her mind racing. "I don't know how, but he did." That night, Alara could not sleep. She sat in the observation lounge, staring at the stars, feeling the vastness of space press against the ship. Orion entered without a sound, standing beside her. "You're awake," he said. Alara looked at him, unsure if she wanted to speak. I keep thinking about the other night." "About what you said? What do you mean, that it's not a joke? Who or what are you?" Orion did not flinch. He took a slow breath and spoke, his voice calm and even. "I was not born on Earth, I was created for it." Alara's eyes widened. "Created? You mean you're not human?" He shook his head slightly. "I am human in appearance, yes. But my origin is different. I am part of a lineage designed to guide civilizations when they reach a critical point. Humanity is at that point now. You are stepping into the wider galaxy. How your species handles it will define your future." She felt a shiver run down her spine. His words were simple, almost clinical, yet they carried a gravity she could not ignore. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked softly. "Because you asked with curiosity, not fear, and because you may be ready to understand." Alara sat back, processing the weight of his revelation. She had thought the universe was vast and mysterious, but she had never imagined humans might be so small, so unprepared, yet on the cusp of something monumental. And now, standing before her, was a man who might not fully be human, yet worked among them as one of their own. Over the next few days, strange things continued. Orion seemed to predict minor events before they happened. An asteroid fragment that threatened to collide with the ship, a sudden fluctuation in gravity within the cargo bay, Even the exact moment a crew member would drop a tool, it was unsettling and impressive in equal measure. One afternoon, while Alara was recalibrating sensors, Orion entered the lab without announcement. "You're aware of the alien traders in Sector 12? He asked. Alara nodded. "Yes, they've been sending signals for weeks, but their language is unstable. The patterns don't match any database." He looked at her, expression calm. Then he began to speak in a series of tones and words she did not understand. The sounds were melodic yet precise. Slowly, the instruments in the lab began to translate the signals in real time. Within minutes, they could understand the traders perfectly. Alara's jaw dropped. You just translated their language?" "On the fly," he nodded. "I am aware of many forms of communication. Some are ancient. Some are rare. My purpose is to ensure understanding between civilizations." She stared at him, heart racing. The puzzle pieces of his identity were slowly forming a picture she could hardly comprehend. How can you know all this?" she whispered. "I was trained," he said simply. "Not like humans are trained. My knowledge is built into me. But understanding comes from observing, and I have observed long." That night, Alara could not sleep again. She wandered the ship, visiting the observation deck, thinking about what Orion had told her. She felt a mix of awe, fear, and wonder. Humanity was traveling deeper into the stars, unaware of what awaited them. And Orion, her calm, unreadable pilot, was there to guide them. The next day, an alert came from the front of the ship. The crew gathered at the control deck, scanning the monitor. A distant colony was sending a distress signal. Their communications were garbled, but fear and urgency were clear. Orion's expression remained calm.
"They are in danger," he said.
"An alien species is approaching. They do not negotiate. They take what they want." The crew murmured among themselves, anxious. Some suggested retreating. Some wanted to attempt communication. Alara looked at Orion. "What do we do?" she asked. He paused, his eyes scanning the stars. "This is a test. Humanity must show its strength. If you retreat, other species will judge your kind as weak. You will be defined by your courage or lack of it." The words were heavy. They were not orders, they were a challenge. And Alara felt a spark within her, a call to rise beyond fear. In the hours that followed, Orion began preparing the crew. He did not yell. He did not command with anger. He instructed with calm authority, explaining strategies, formations, and techniques that went beyond Earth's current military or scientific training. Alara watched as the crew transformed under his guidance. People who had never handled weapons or piloting beyond the basics learned to move with precision. Humans who had doubted themselves began to act decisively, guided by his calm, unwavering presence. Even the scientists, usually timid in stressful situations, started to trust their instincts, applying Orion's methods to stabilize the ship and protect the colony. During the preparations, Alara found herself beside Orion on the observation deck. The stars stretched endlessly before them, glittering and distant. "You really are different," she said quietly. He looked at her, expression calm as ever. "Different does not mean better or worse. It means prepared. And I was prepared to help humanity rise." She nodded slowly. I think you're right. But it feels impossible. The galaxy is so big and we are so small." "Small is not weakness," he replied. "It is opportunity. Strength is not measured by size, but by courage, curiosity, and unity. Humanity has all three, if it chooses to use them." Alara felt a sense of purpose growing within her. The universe had tested her species before. Now it would test them again. And perhaps, for the first time, humans would meet the challenge not with fear, but with determination. As the ship set a course for the colony, Orion returned to the command deck, his presence calm and commanding. Alara stayed behind for a moment, watching him work. She remembered her joke from days ago. She had asked a question without expecting an answer. And now, she realized that the answer was more than truth. It was a guide, a warning, and an invitation. The stars outside the ship seemed brighter somehow, reflecting the weight of the journey ahead. Alara turned back to the bridge, feeling ready. Humanity was stepping into the unknown, and this time they would not walk alone. Orion looked up briefly and caught her gaze. For the first time, a small shadow of a smile crossed his face. Not full, but enough to signal that he recognized the importance of this moment. Alara returned the look with determination. Together they would face the challenges ahead. And for the first time, the joke she had made seemed like a prelude to something far greater. The Aegis Explorer moved silently through the black sea of space, its hull glinting faintly under the distant light of a nearby star. The crew had spent the past few days preparing for the unknown. Under Orion's calm guidance, every system had been checked, every strategy planned. But even with preparation, a sense of unease had settled over the ship. Ilara stood on the observation deck, staring at the distant cluster of lights that marked the colony in distress. It was small, almost insignificant among the stars, yet it represented something far greater, humanity's first real test beyond Earth. The colony's transmissions had been fragmented, filled with fear and confusion. Something was coming, something that would not wait for diplomacy. Orion appeared beside her without a sound, as always. His presence was steady, unyielding, and somehow reassuring. "They are close," he said simply. Ilara glanced at him, trying to gauge his expression. But his face was calm, unreadable. "How close?" she asked. "Too close for negotiation," he replied, "and too close for hesitation." The crew gathered on the bridge, watching the monitors as faint shapes appeared in the distance, alien ships, sleek and dark, gliding through space with an ominous precision. Their size and numbers were intimidating, and there was no sign of communication. "Do we know what they want?" one of the officers asked nervously. Orion shook his head slightly. "They have taken resources from other colonies. They do not negotiate. They do not retreat. They judge strength and act accordingly. We must show them that humanity is not weak." A murmur ran through the crew. Some exchanged worried glances, unsure if they were ready for what lay ahead. But Ilara felt a spark of determination. Orion's words, calm and unwavering, reminded her of the courage that lay within their species. Humans had survived countless challenges on Earth. They could survive this too, if they acted together. The alien ships approached steadily, their formation precise, almost mechanical. Orion moved among the crew, his presence commanding without raising his voice. He gave instructions calmly, explaining complex maneuvers in simple terms. Ilara watched as humans transformed under his guidance. Engineers who had only handled machinery now managed energy shields with precision. Scientists adjusted weapon calibrations that would have been impossible without Orion's instructions. Even the newest recruits learned to anticipate the enemy's movements, guided by his predictive calculations. "Formations Delta and Echo move to intercept," Orion said. "Shield generators synchronize with trajectory. We are not fleeing. We are standing." Ilara felt her heart pound in her chest. She had seen space battles in simulations, in stories, even in training. But this was real, and they were not alone. Humanity's first challenge among the stars was here, and the outcome would shape how the galaxy viewed them forever. The alien ships began their approach, and the first warning shots came, silent pulses of energy that glowed faintly against the darkness. The crew held their positions, following Orion's calm commands. Every move was calculated, every action deliberate. There was no panic, no chaos, only focus. Ilara took her station at the communications panel, relaying updates and monitoring the alien movements. She glanced at Orion. He was everywhere at once, coordinating, predicting, guiding. She realized that his calm was not just composure, it was understanding, almost instinctual knowledge of what needed to happen. "Brace for impact," Orion said, his voice steady. The first alien ship swept past the colony, testing defenses. Energy pulses hit shields, shaking the Aegis Explorer slightly. But Orion's preparations held. The humans responded with precision, deflecting attacks and maintaining formation. Ilara felt a surge of pride. Her species was standing against a superior force. They were not panicking. They were rising. The battle continued, a tense dance of strategy and courage. The aliens tested humanity's limits, probing weaknesses and attempting to intimidate. But Orion anticipated every move, guiding the crew to counter each threat before it became critical. During a brief pause, Ilara approached him on the bridge. "How do you know all this? How do you stay so calm?" He looked at her, expression as steady as the stars outside. I observe, I calculate, but most importantly, I trust in those I guide. You are capable of more than you believe. His words filled her with determination. She realized that the battle was not just about defending the colony. It was about proving that humans could rise to the challenge, that they could stand among the stars as equals. Hours passed, though it felt like minutes. The alien ships maintained their advance, but humanity's defenses held. Orion's calm, precise guidance turned fear into focus, hesitation into action. The humans who had once doubted themselves now moved with unity and purpose. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the alien ships slowed their approach. There was a moment of silence, a pause in the tension that filled the bridge. The monitors showed the enemy forming a loose circle, almost as if they were observing, analyzing. Orion spoke quietly, but his voice carried weight. They are judging us. Humanity's courage is being measured. Stand firm. Show them who we are. Ilara's heart pounded. The crew followed his lead, maintaining formations and keeping shields up. They were ready for anything, guided by the calm presence of the pilot who had once answered a joke with a serious truth. Then, without warning, a communication signal flickered on. The alien ships had opened a channel. The crew held their breath as Ilara relayed the message. The alien leader's voice was clear but strange, a melodic cadence that resonated through the ship. It spoke of observation, of testing, of judgment. Humanity had survived their first challenge, not through firepower alone, but through courage, strategy, and unity. Orion listened carefully, then turned to the crew. They recognize strength. They understand that humanity is not weak. This is only the beginning, but it is a step toward respect. Ilara felt a rush of relief and pride. Humanity had faced the unknown and stood firm. They had shown that they could rise to challenges beyond Earth, that they could act with courage and intelligence when the galaxy tested them. That night, as the crew celebrated their small victory, Ilara found a quiet moment on the observation deck. Orion joined her, standing silently beside her. The stars stretched endlessly before them, silent witnesses to the first proof that humans could rise in the face of danger. You were right, she said quietly. Courage, curiosity, unity. They are stronger than fear. Orion nodded slightly. And humanity has all three. Never forget that. Ilara looked at him, her mind still filled with questions about his origin and his purpose. But she also understood something essential. Orion was not just a guide. He was a reminder that humans were capable of far more than they realized. That even in the face of unknown dangers, they could rise. The Aegis Explorer continued its journey through the stars, carrying humans who were learning to stand tall among the unknown. And as Ilara watched Orion calm and precise, she felt a spark of hope. Humanity's future among the stars was uncertain, but for the first time, she believed they could meet it with courage. The night was quiet. The stars shone, distant but brilliant. And somewhere in the dark reaches of space, new challenges waited. But humanity, guided by Orion and their own growing strength, would meet them. They would rise. The colony shone like a small jewel in the vast blackness of space. Its lights flickered faintly, signs of life and activity. But beyond its safe borders, the alien ships lingered, moving like shadows against the stars. The Aegis Explorer hovered close, ready to defend the humans who had called for help. Ilara stood on the observation deck, feeling the hum of the ship beneath her feet. The tension in the air was thick, but there was no panic. Humanity had survived the first approach, but she knew the challenge was far from over. The aliens had judged them, yes, but now they were testing resolve, strategy, and courage. Orion entered silently, as always. His eyes scanned the monitors, tracking every movement, every potential threat. They are observing, he said calmly. Not retreating, waiting, testing our response. The moment we falter, they will act. Ilara nodded, gripping the railing. She could feel the fear rising in her chest, but she pushed it aside. Fear had no place here, not when courage was required. We won't falter, she said firmly, as much to herself as to him. Orion's gaze met hers briefly. Good, humanity rises when it chooses to. Stand firm, act together, and you will succeed. The crew moved into positions following Orion's instructions with precision. The engineers monitored the ship's systems, adjusting shields and weapons with speed and accuracy. Pilots prepared for maneuvers, practicing formations that Orion had taught them. Movements designed to confuse, predict, and outsmart the enemy. Ilara's hands shook slightly as she took her station at the communications panel. She had trained for emergencies, but this was different. Lives depended on their decisions, on every choice made in the next few moments. Orion walked among the crew, calm and measured. "Remember," he said, addressing everyone, "we are not fighting out of fear. We are fighting to show who humanity is. Precision, courage, and unity will carry us through." The alien ships began to move. They circled the colony, testing defenses, attempting to intimidate. Energy pulses struck shields, shaking the Aegis Explorer slightly. But the crew responded exactly as Orion had instructed. Defenses synchronized perfectly, countermeasures deployed with accuracy, and human ingenuity shone through. Ilara watched in awe as Orion directed the crew. His mind seemed to anticipate every move. When a cluster of alien ships veered unexpectedly, he adjusted human responses before anyone could even react. Each action was precise, almost preternatural, and yet it relied on the crew executing his guidance. Hours passed like minutes. The battle was tense, a silent struggle of strategy rather than brute force. The aliens probed every weakness, but humanity held its ground. Shields deflected attacks, weapons targeted precisely, and every human aboard moved as if guided by a single purpose. During a lull in the assault, Orion called the crew together for a brief strategy adjustment. "They are observing patterns," he said. "Their attacks are not random. They adapt, but we must remain unpredictable. Do not rely on fear or instinct alone. Trust calculations, anticipate, and act with precision." Ilara realized the depth of his training. This was not just knowledge, it was insight. Orion understood the aliens' tactics before they even acted, and yet he relied on the crew to execute the plan, teaching them courage, foresight, and unity in the process. As the battle continued, a larger alien vessel emerged from the darkness, its size dwarfing the Aegis Explorer. It moved with intent, heading directly toward the colony. The crew tensed, but Orion's calm voice cut through the fear. "Focus," he said. "We are ready. The larger they are, the easier they are to predict. Precision will overcome size." Ilara followed his instructions, adjusting the communication channels, monitoring the alien vessel's trajectory, and relaying updates to the crew. Every move was coordinated, every action synchronized. The humans worked as one, guided by Orion's experience, insight, and unshakable calm. The large alien ship tested the colony's shields, striking repeatedly with heavy energy pulses. But humanity's defenses held. The smaller ships moved strategically, attempting to outmaneuver the humans. But Orion's predictive guidance allowed the crew to counter every attack. For the first time, Ilara noticed a shift in the aliens' behavior. Their attacks were no longer purely aggressive. They hesitated, almost as if measuring strength, evaluating courage, and judging the humans' resilience. Orion's voice was calm but firm. They recognized strength. Maintain formation, defend with precision, and show them unity. Courage is as important as weapons. Ilara realized that humanity's display was more than survival, it was proof. Proof that they were capable of standing among other civilizations, capable of acting with intelligence and strategy when confronted by the unknown. Hours passed, and the alien ships began to adjust. They no longer launched reckless attacks. Instead, they formed a loose perimeter, almost like observers. Orion's instructions shifted subtly. Focus on defense, but remain prepared to demonstrate strength if challenged. Ilara worked tirelessly, monitoring systems, adjusting shields, and coordinating with the colony. She saw humans who had once doubted themselves now acting with confidence, executing maneuvers that would have been impossible without Orion's guidance. Fear had been replaced by purpose. Hesitation had been replaced by action. Finally, a signal came through the communication channels. The aliens had opened a channel. Ilara's hands trembled slightly as she relayed the message. The voice that came through was strange, melodic and precise. It spoke of observation, of judgment, and of recognition. Orion listened carefully, then turned to the crew. They understand our resolve. Humanity is no longer just a species to be measured, they are a species to be respected. Relief washed over the crew. The tension eased slightly, though they knew this was only the beginning. Humanity had passed the first real test, not through overwhelming force but through courage, strategy, and unity. Alara took a deep breath, looking out at the colony and the stars beyond. She felt pride swelling in her chest. They had faced the unknown and they had stood tall. Under Orion's guidance, humans had proven that they could rise to the challenge, even against a superior force. Orion joined her on the observation deck, standing silently beside her. "You asked me a question once," he said quietly. "You joked. But curiosity led you here. Humanity rises in the same way, by asking, by seeking, by daring to act even in the face of fear." Alara nodded. She realized that the battle was more than survival. It was a lesson, a demonstration, a proof that humans could face the galaxy with courage and intelligence. The Aegis Explorer remained close to the colony, its systems humming steadily. Humanity had stood and the stars seemed to shine a little brighter, reflecting the courage that had been shown. Alara looked at Orion, his calm presence a reminder of what had guided them through the challenge. For the first time she felt certain. Humanity's future among the stars was not defined by fear or uncertainty. It was defined by courage, unity, and the willingness to rise to every test. And in that moment, as the colony's lights glimmered safely below, and the alien ships held their distance, she understood something essential. Humanity had not just survived. Humanity had proven it could stand. The night was quiet, but it was filled with possibility. The galaxy awaited, full of unknown challenges and unseen wonders, and for the first time humanity was ready to meet them, not as the weak newcomer, but as a species capable of rising to greatness. Orion's presence beside her was steady, unshakable. He had guided them this far, but he had also shown the crew something greater, that courage, curiosity, and unity were weapons more powerful than any technology. Alara felt a sense of purpose grow within her. Humanity had taken its first true step into the galaxy, and under Orion's guidance she knew they would continue to rise no matter what lay ahead. The Aegis Explorer glided through space, its hull reflecting the soft glow of distant stars. The colony below was safe, its lights blinking steadily in reassurance. For the first time since the threat had appeared, the crew allowed themselves a moment to breathe. But the mission was not over. Humanity had proven strength, yet there was more to learn, more to understand about the universe and themselves. Alara walked across the observation deck, her eyes fixed on the colony. She thought about the battle, about how the humans had stood together under Orion's guidance. Every crew member had found courage they never knew they possessed. Every decision, every action had been a step toward proving that humans could rise in the face of the unknown. Orion joined her silently, as he always did. He leaned slightly against the railing, gazing at the colony with calm focus. "You have done well," he said quietly. Alara turned to him, a small smile on her lips. "We have all done well, but I keep thinking about your words from the beginning. About being created for this, about humanity reaching a turning point." "What did you mean?" Orion's expression remained calm, but there was a depth in his eyes she had never seen before. "I was made to guide civilizations when they reach a moment of choice. When a species faces the unknown and must decide whether to rise or fall. Humanity is at such a moment now. The events we faced were only a glimpse of what lies ahead." Alara absorbed his words, understanding slowly dawning. "So, everything you've done, everything you've taught us, it was preparation?" "In part," he said, "but also demonstration. Courage is shown in action, not words. Strength is shown in unity, not weapons. And wisdom is shown when fear is faced with reason. Humanity has demonstrated all three." She looked down at the colony. People were moving through streets, returning to their lives, unaware of how close disaster had come. The crew had saved them, yes, but more than that, they had proven that humans could rise to challenges beyond their world. Orion spoke again. "The galaxy watches. Other civilizations take note. Your actions today have sent a message. Humans are not to be underestimated." Alara's heart swelled with pride. She realized that their victory was not just about defense, not just about surviving an attack. It was about humanity's place in the universe. They had shown intelligence, courage, and unity. They had shown that even small beings could rise to greatness when guided by reason and bravery. The crew gathered in the common area later, celebrating quietly. There were smiles, laughter, and relief, but no arrogance. Every human aboard knew they had faced something extraordinary, something that would shape their future. Ilara found a moment to speak to Orion privately. They stood together near a viewport, watching the stars drift by. "Orion," she said softly, "why did you answer me that night, when I made that joke? Why tell me the truth?" He looked at her, his face calm but sincere. "Because you asked with curiosity, not fear. You were open to learning, open to understanding. Humanity rises in the same way. Curiosity drives courage, and courage shapes destiny." Ilara felt warmth spread through her chest. She realized that the joke she had made had led to something far greater: understanding, guidance, and revelation. She smiled faintly. "I never imagined a joke could lead to all of this." Orion's small, almost imperceptible smile mirrored hers. The smallest questions can lead to the greatest answers. As they watched the stars, the crew began sending messages to nearby colonies and distant civilizations. The humans' display of unity and courage had been observed by other species. Already, responses arrived, messages of respect, curiosity, and even cautious admiration. Ilara marveled at the thought. Humanity was no longer an isolated species on a small planet. They were part of a larger community, one that would judge them by actions, not just words. And in that judgment, humans had proven they could rise. The days following the battle were filled with activity. The crew repaired systems, upgraded defenses, and continued to study alien technology they had recovered. Each task reminded them that survival was only the first step. Understanding and growth were next. Ilara spent hours with Orion, learning not just strategy but observation, reasoning, and patience. He taught her to read the subtle cues of alien behavior, to anticipate challenges, and to trust her instincts. Each lesson was a step toward preparing humanity for the wider galaxy. One evening, as they worked in the observation deck, Ilara finally asked the question that had lingered in her mind for weeks. "Do you belong to another world?" Orion's gaze remained fixed on the stars. "In a way. My origin is not Earth, but my purpose is here. I exist to guide, to teach, and to ensure that species like yours rise when the moment comes." "You have proven you are ready." Ilara nodded slowly. She understood now that the answer to her joke had not been a threat or a warning. It had been an invitation for humans to see their potential, to rise to the challenges that awaited them among the stars. The ship continued its journey, carrying humans into the vast unknown. The colony was safe, the crew stronger, and humanity wiser. They had faced fear, uncertainty, and the unknown, and they had stood together. Orion watched the stars, and for the first time, allowed a small, almost imperceptible expression of satisfaction. Not a smile, not an emotion overt, but a quiet acknowledgement. Humanity had risen. They had stood as equals, not just survivors. Ilara looked at him and realized something profound. The universe was vast, full of challenges and unknowns, but humans, guided by courage, curiosity, and unity, could meet any test. And Orion, quiet and calm, had shown them the way. As the ship drifted forward, the crew began receiving signals from other distant civilizations, messages of welcome, inquiry, and cautious collaboration. Humans were no longer alone. Their place in the galaxy was being recognized. Ilara turned back to Orion. "You told me once that curiosity drives courage. I understand now. Humanity has been curious, and now we have courage. And with unity, we can face whatever comes next." Orion's calm voice responded, steady as always. "Yes. And the moment you face the next challenge, remember this. Strength is not measured by weapons or size. It is measured by wisdom, by courage, and by the will to rise together. Humanity has shown that it can do so." Ilara smiled faintly, her heart full. The joke she had asked had led to truth, guidance, and revelation. And the truth had shaped not just her understanding, but the path of an entire species. The stars stretched endlessly ahead, endless possibilities waiting. Humanity's journey had only begun, but for the first time they walked among the stars not as the weak newcomers, but as a species capable of rising, capable of courage, and capable of standing. Orion stood beside her, calm, precise, and unwavering. And for the first time, Ilara felt that humanity was ready for whatever the galaxy could bring. The universe was vast, full of challenges, wonders, and mysteries. And humanity, guided by courage, curiosity, and unity, would rise to meet them all. And in that moment, Ilara finally understood the meaning of his answer. What had begun as a joke had become a lesson in courage, a revelation of purpose and a path forward for humanity. Humanity had risen. Humanity had stood, and humanity would continue to rise.